Okay, so we're going to take the web page that we created previously, all right, and you guys may have your own web page. You can do the same thing or just do it inside a blank page. Either way works. And I'm going to take this page and create a new page name that's going to be my contact form. So, and then in this middle section here, we'll put like contact information that people can fill out and show you how to utilize that inside Dreamweaver. All right. So here's the page loaded inside Dreamweaver. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, if you're not in Classic View, you can move yourself to Classic View. Classic View puts our insert panel along the top, so that way I can look at all the different tabs. That'll give me all the different buttons within that tab. And the tab we're going to be working on now is the Forms tab. Alright, so if we click that Forms tab, we can see all the different form elements that we can add to this page. Alright, so right up here is where you have your different default workspace layouts. And Classic is the one that actually will take your insert panel from the right side and place it along the top. Alright, so I'm going to save this index.html as contact.html. Alright, now I already have my site defined, so I can look down here in my files panel. Usually it might take a minute. If it doesn't show up there, you can hit this refresh button and it'll show up. There's contact.html. Alright, so that's the actual page I want to work on. So you'll notice up here I have an index.html and a contact. So I'm going to close the index one. Alright, and then I'm going to alter some of this information. So maybe I don't need the mouse over, or I can just gaming rules. Maybe I can get rid of this. Let me go into split view and let's get rid of that heading there, how to use this document. Alright, remember, you want to be careful when you're highlighting stuff in design view and hitting delete, because see how I highlight that text? If I hit delete now, the paragraph tags will be there. That's why you want to use your tag selector down at the bottom that lets you see as soon as I click this paragraph here, then it includes the paragraph tags. So that's the way to delete things in design view. Alright, so let's in here is where I'm going to put my form, right in here where this text is. And instead of gaming rules, I'm going to call this contact us, or just contact. Alright, now so I don't need any text here, so I'm going to get rid of this text and I'll actually use the tag selector and hit delete. Now so that information's in a section tag, and I have two sections in here, so I'm going to delete one of these right here, and I'm going to use this one right here. So I can see I have a section with the heading 2 tag, which I don't need the heading 2 tag in there. So now from here I can go ahead and start creating an actual form inside here. Alright, so looking up at the different form buttons that we have, if we mouse through some of these, this is the one that just says form. Now this is what we'll use to start any form that we decide to do. Because there's one thing that you need to know about forms, is that they have to be processed somewhere. Okay, so whoever's filling out the form is putting in their name, their address, their phone number, and then they're hitting a submit button. Well, when they do that, the system needs to take all that information that they input and send it somewhere for processing. All right, and that's the part that becomes tricky. So in this demo, we're going to just show you how to create the form. Making the connection and doing the processing is going to be based on who you're hosted with. So there's several ways you can go in there, and so a lot of times you're going to decide, well, who's hosting my website, and how do they process form information, if they process forms at all. So we can talk about that in another demo. But in here, we're just going to create the design user interface for the form initially. So okay. So let's go ahead and click the first button here, which is form. Let's watch what it does. All right. So now it's asking us to create what's called an action. Well, I don't have anything to put in there yet because I don't know what the processing information will be. So I'm just going to click OK. And it's going to do a method of get. Actually, let me try this again because normally most forms are a method of post. So I'm going to click this and I'm going to change that to post. Okay, it could be get, but you know, and there's different things like these choices that you choose in here would be based on like this one specifically would be based on who's hosting your site and how they're processing forms. So you may have a direct URL or a path that you go to that accesses some specific file that actually does the processing. So what it's doing, that means it'll take all the information that's put into the form and push it into that file, and that file processes it, receives the variables of name, address, etc. Okay? So I'm going to just click OK as a post, and that's where the action would be. So inside here, you may have a full path or a file name depending on where your site is in the directories and where you're hosting where that would be. So that's an empty form, and you'll just see it as a red box in design view. Okay? So if I click inside here, I can actually start to create my first form element. Alright, so if I go in here and say, okay, well, let's start creating some of these form pieces. We have the choice of text field, hidden field. Okay, sometimes you want to pass a variable that the person filling out the form doesn't see to help you, because maybe you have 3 different forms on your site. One form's for like ordering shirts, asking questions about that. Another form might be for billing inquiries. So maybe you have separate forms for that have a hidden field that process a hidden piece of data. So when you go get the results of somebody filling out that form, you can see the results, and then your data for your hidden field would there. Oh, this is about billing. Okay, I get it. And then start to process that accordingly. All right, so that's hidden field. And then you have the text area where you can actually have somebody put in all kinds of text. And there's a bunch of them in here. You have a checkbox, checkbox group. They kind of show you visually what they represent. You know, it's just one box and you put a check. You want this or do you not? If you do, check it. A checkbox group, you can check as many as you want among a list. A radio button. A radio button is normally made for creating a choice. Like, you know, do you want A or B? You know, is it yes or no? And you have to choose. Okay? So if you clicked yes and then you went and clicked no, yes would unclick itself, and it only let you choose one. All right? Then you also have a radio group. Oh, this is one radio button. You can put them individually, but the one I was just referring to is the radio group. And then you have a select list, a jump menu, which is like a drop down and jumps you to a certain area. Image field, file field, the button itself for clicking on, right? A label. When we add some of these text elements like the text field, it'll let us add a label from the beginning anyways. And then you have something called a field set. A field set helps you group pieces of your form. So you may create a field set that represents the name and address, and then you may have another field set that represents the phone number, the cell number, the work number, like the phone type stuff. And then another field set that represents, you know, whatever it is. It depends on what you want to ask. Okay, we'll start with field set, and I'll show you how to group those things. And then you'll notice that the rest of the buttons here are all kind of a different color, and they have this little red asterisk next to them, right? And when we mouse over some of them, they're like spry validation radio group. And a lot of these, in fact all of them, have the word validation in there. And that's what the asterisk is for. It's telling you that you need to validate a certain field. So if you want to create a field that is a phone number field and it needs to be, you know, 10 digits, then you can specify that it needs to be 10 digits. Or you can specify that it's an email address and it needs to be in a valid format in case they forgot the dot or they forgot the @ symbol or whatever the case may be. So that's SPRY validation, which is a little more advanced part of forms that you can check out after designing your initial form. So let's start by creating a field set. And if I click the field set, let's give it a name here and or a legend. Let's call it personal. All right. So when I click OK and I look, I just see, oh, there's a legend, there's a field set, and the legend name is personal. If I click on the live button, I can see that it creates this field set, and that's the name up here at the top. So it's a little grouped area that I actually can keep and put data into. So you know, when I turn live, it actually changed the way it looked. So if I turn live off, it just looks like a box with the word personal in it. All right. So within that field set, all right, I want to make sure that my next line goes right in here. So if I'm clicking around and selecting things, you always want to make sure that you're in the right spot before you add your next element. And the next element I want to add is a text field. So if I click on the text field, here's the interface for that. It'll say, well, what kind of text field do you want? I was straight up text. There's all the other kinds you can list as well. Let's put in name as the name. Okay. I'm not going to put any values or size or max length. Click OK, and there's my name field. All right. Now I don't have a label for that, so if I wanted to, what I can do is another way to doing it is if you, I'm going to delete that I just created. It created this input name equals name, type equals text. That's just a straight up text box. If I put it on live, scroll down there, there's a text box. I can fill it out, right? But what I want to do is I want to create, there's another method of doing this, and that's just dragging and dropping. Turn off live, click on that box and delete it. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the classic text field box, and I'm going to click on it and drag it down to my field to where I want to put it. All right, so if I drag it right there and drop it, it's going to ask me for an ID, which I'm going to create as name, and a label, which I'm going to put as name. The ID is what the form processing engine identifies the name information. So on the other end, it's looking for the ID and saying, oh, name. There's the ID. What's the text that the customer or client put into the form that associates itself with the ID name? All right, and I'll just leave all the other defaults here, and let's click OK, show you that. So now we have name and a field. Pretty straightforward. And here's the code for it. Input type equals text, name equals name, ID equals name. Yeah? If I put it on live view, scroll down a little bit, there's the first part of our form. And if I want, I can say, let me turn live view off, maybe personal, I want to say personal information. I can just go directly to where that is in the code and change that. Okay, and so here I'm at the end of this next one. I'm going to have another text field. Okay, and address, label, address. Click OK, and there's our address. The only thing is now they're kind of side by side. All right, so I'm going to do a line break right after this, and whoops. Okay, line break is Shift Enter, and you get the break command here. Now I'm set to HTML5 as my document type, so I'm using the newly accepted break command without the closing / inside, without the self-closing tag code on there. All right. So, oh, wait, what's up here? Break here, address. I don't want the break there. What did I do? Input name. I'm going to remove that break tag because I actually put it in the wrong spot. I had it in between. Looks like I have label and input and label and input. Right? There is, I want it right after the name, which is right here. Because you have the label, which is the text right there, and then you have the input type, which is the actual box. Then I want the break. So I want it to show up like this. And you know, and then afterwards you can do some CSS styling on this to kind of separate them. So if I look at it now, in live view, it's like this. Okay, so let's just add a few more here to get you an idea of just creating some boxes. And I'm gonna do this differently here. I'm gonna go into there. I'm gonna hit. Oh, don't do that. I'm gonna do Shift Enter to do a break, and I'll put in the next box. Let's say name, address. I'll skip the city and all that kind of stuff. But let's say you want a text information area. So text area, right? So if you click and put in text area, oh, it looks like it might have put it before the, let's call it comments. With the ID, I usually go all lowercase. With the label, I'll go sentence case. And I want that break command to be after the address there. There we go. So now, when I go in there and look at that, it's an area. And actually, you know, I want another break because I actually want a break between the label and the box, because that way it shows. And for now, it's probably not the right thing to do, but I'm going to just create another break to create a little space there. I would rather go in there and create a CSS style that is representative of the spacing that I want. But I'm just going to crudely do this now just to give you a feel for how Dreamweaver is creating these forms. Okay, so now I have a name field, I have an address field, and some comments I can put in. And let's say, we'll look at some of the other forms in another demo, but let's say we were going to finish off this form with this name, this address, and these comments. The last thing I would need is a submit button. Okay, so at the end of this, okay, and you would do it, you could do it after the field set or in the field set. I would probably do it after the field set, because what you're submitting is the form. So you'll notice the field set is all of that code right there, right? And the form is actually what we're processing. So, because normally you do a field set because you have more than one field set. I guess you could do one field set to represent your style that you want for your entire form. Okay, that's fine, you know. So it's just totally up to you. But you know, if you were to do another field set, it could be not personal information but business information after that. You know, so you would separate your field sets like that. So the last thing we need to do for this form for now is to create a button on there. Okay, and what type of button do you want? I want a submit button. All right, and what's the name on that? Submit. I'm just going to put submit. All right, click OK, and there you go. Now, it's not styled very nicely or anything like that, but it'll work. We can go back later and put some styling on it. All right, so if we hit live now, there is our working form. Now you may say to yourself, oh, okay, well the submit set, I like it inside the field set because I don't have another, because normally you have one field set, then another field set, then a submit button. Well, go back in there and change that. Say, oh, okay, I actually want this submit button right here to be inside that field set right here. And take that break tag put it after the text area box. Actually put 2 of them in there for now. And now if we look at it, then we have fill in our field, fill in our address, put in some comments, hit submit. Okay, and then that will go to what we had put in the action field for our form, and it will process the variables of name, address, and comment. So it'll bring back this information, and depending on where you're hosted, it's gonna, either you have it set up to email you, or you go and check a file where that data is. There's more things to look at as far as that's concerned, but that's just the basic of how to go into Dreamweaver and create form elements. In another demo, maybe we'll do some of the more advanced elements. But yeah, thanks for watching.